Welcome to the Space for Grace podcast, a place where you can come as you are, hear genuine conversations about women's holistic health, and leave educated, inspired, and encouraged about your health and fitness journey. Get ready to find freedom to flourish in your physical, mental, and spiritual health. I'm your host, MK, and I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to the Space for Grace. Hey y'all, welcome back to the Space for Grace podcast. I'm super excited about today's episode because we're going to talk all things PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. We're going to talk about what it is, what the different root causes may be, different symptoms, how you get diagnosed, what the different treatment options are, and I am so excited to share the things that I've been able to do naturally, lifestyle-wise, exercise-wise, nutrition-wise, to manage my PCOS naturally for the last 7-ish years. I was diagnosed with PCOS in the fall of 2017. I had never heard of it before, didn't know what it was, and over the past 7 years have been able to dig into holistic health and what PCOS is and the ways to manage it without medication. So I'm very excited to dive into this and share what I know about this today. So PCOS stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome. It is an endocrine, reproductive, metabolic disorder. So that's partly why it's so confusing and there's not a ton of research on it still because it is so complicated. It affects so many different systems in the body, your nervous system, your reproductive system, even your digestive system, and it is experienced differently by different women. So different women may have different types of PCOS, as they call it, different combination of symptoms. But at the end of the day, there are a few root causes that we're going to talk about that anyone with PCOS can address and can most likely see significant results in their PCOS by implementing some of these lifestyle changes we're going to talk about. So I'm really excited to get into that with you guys. So first, let's go through what the causes of PCOS are. So you may wonder if you have PCOS, like if you did something to cause it, if it's because of this or that or the way you grew up. And there's really no way to know what caused your PCOS. There's different ways to do tests now to see what is off in your body and different things that maybe have caused that, whether it's exposure to different toxins in the air or water or in your food, different genetic factors that might be at play. But really, the cause of PCOS is currently unknown. And we think it's a combination of genetic and environmental and lifestyle factors. So there's lots of different things that could be in the way that you grew up that maybe triggered PCOS to manifest itself. Just because it's partly genetic or could be passed down doesn't mean it has to manifest. So that goes back into epigenetics, that we can kind of turn on and off different genes. And that's why I think lifestyle factors is so key in managing our PCOS, because we can kind of shut those genes off with epigenetics. But so different symptoms that you can have with PCOS include, I'm just going to go through the list because there's a lot of different symptoms you could have. And again, people have these to different degrees, or you might not have all of these, or you might have all of them. So weight gain or trouble losing weight, irregular periods or no period at all, or periods where you're not actually ovulating called anovulatory periods. You can get headaches and migraines. You can have mood swings, anxiety, and depression, balding on your scalp, so your hair thinning on your scalp, as well as excessive body hair around other areas of your body, acne, skin tags, infertility, trouble sleeping, low libido, pelvic pain, and ovarian cysts. So obviously this list is not fun, and these symptoms are not normal, and they are not fun to deal with, but there are things we can do about it to reverse these symptoms and get rid of a lot of these symptoms, thankfully. The root cause of a lot of these symptoms, and some people call these the types of PCOS, are chronic inflammation. So that would be inflammatory PCOS. There is the root cause of insulin resistance. So that would be insulin resistant PCOS type. There's adrenal fatigue, or I just call it chronic stress sometimes, and that's a type of PCOS. There's also two others we're not going to talk a lot about today. Maybe in future episodes, we'll dig more into birth control, but there's something called post-birth control syndrome, and that can be a type of PCOS. And then there's a hypothyroidism type PCOS as well. We're not really going to go deep into those two today. We're going to focus mainly on the inflammatory PCOS, insulin resistant PCOS, and adrenal fatigue PCOS, because those three root causes, if you really focus on those and healing those, I believe that you can really reverse most of your PCOS symptoms. Before we get into that, though, let's talk about how you're actually diagnosed with PCOS. So maybe you're listening and you're not diagnosed with PCOS, but you listened to that list of symptoms and you feel like you have a lot of those symptoms, and it may make sense that you may be dealing with inflammation, insulin resistance, and adrenal fatigue. So to really know whether or not you have PCOS, it does require a diagnosis. And to be diagnosed, you have to have two of these three criteria. So the three criteria are elevated androgen levels, cystic ovaries, and irregular periods. So you just have to have two of those three criteria to be diagnosed with PCOS. Elevated androgen, cystic ovaries, irregular periods. The reason we say that PCOS is not really named well is because you don't even have to have cystic ovaries to have polycystic ovarian syndrome. You could just have elevated androgen levels, which is a hormone, and irregular periods. And for a period to be irregular, I believe it has to be longer than 35 days or shorter than 28 days, and that constitutes an irregular period. So you can have a little variation in the length of your cycle, but it just has to be between 28 and 35 days long to be considered regular, if that makes sense. So that's how you know if you have PCOS, and if you are having a lot of these symptoms and your doctor is not really listening to you to really look into diagnosing you and testing, getting a blood test to test your androgen levels and getting an ultrasound to look at your ovaries, then you need to find a doctor who will look into that with you. Because again, all these symptoms are not normal. Eating 1,200 calories a day, exercising, and still gaining weight is not normal. And there is something else going on in your body that needs to be addressed, whether it's hormone imbalances, inflammation, insulin resistance, things like that. And it's super important to catch these things as early as you can so that they are easier to treat and to reverse. A lot of times, if you go to just a regular old OBGYN or primary care doctor and you get diagnosed with PCOS, unfortunately, the majority of the time, they're not going to start by giving you lifestyle changes. They're not really going to mention nutrition and exercise and all of the things that you could do naturally to reverse your PCOS. And it's not the doctor's fault. They're just taught in school to diagnose and then to prescribe a treatment, prescribe a drug, a medication to deal with that diagnosis. And so thankfully now there's a lot of other resources out there on natural intervention for chronic illness such as PCOS, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But as was the case for me and a lot of other women, I was diagnosed. I wasn't explained. They didn't explain to me well what PCOS even was and the different options. But they just said that my options were to take birth control, metformin, or progesterone. And so we'll start with birth control. Birth control is not going to fix your PCOS. It's not going to give you a regular period. It will give you a fake regular period, but you won't if you're on birth control, it's pumping you full of synthetic hormones. And that means that you're not having the natural rise and fall of different hormones during your cycle. So a natural cycle should look like estrogen dominant in the follicular phase, the first half of your cycle. And then there's a spike in LH that causes you to ovulate. And then in the second half of your cycle, your luteal phase, your progesterone should be higher and should dominate that half of the cycle. And that's what triggers your bleeding to start, your menstrual phase to start. But when you're on birth control, it's either pumping you full of fake estrogen and progesterone. And so all of your sex hormones are elevated your whole cycle. And then during the sugar pill week or the placebo week, it's a withdrawal bleed, but it's not a real period because you didn't ovulate. Birth control obviously keeps you from ovulating so that you cannot get pregnant. So if PCOS, the problem is you're not ovulating naturally and you're not having periods regularly, then why would the solution be to put you on birth control to continue to not ovulate and to continue to have messed up sex hormones that are not helping you to have a natural period? That's all I'll say on that right now. Again, we need to do another episode about birth control, but the next option is metformin, and metformin is getting a little bit closer to one of those root causes of PCOS, which is the insulin resistant PCOS. And I'm not 100% against metformin. I'm just against doctors prescribing it for PCOS left and right to anyone and everyone who has PCOS. Metformin could be helpful for some women who have really heavy insulin resistance or prediabetes, and it may be helpful for some women with like hypothyroidism or things like that, but it needs to be more of like a case by case basis. I was not like overweight when I was diagnosed with PCOS. I had gained some weight, which was unusual for me, but I wasn't overweight. And what happened to me when I took metformin was I would have these really bad blood sugar drops, and I would get nauseous and felt like I couldn't eat anything, and I was getting headaches, and it just wasn't helping balance my blood sugar. It wasn't helping heal my insulin resistance, so metformin was not the right option for me. And then progesterone is getting even closer to helping the actual root cause of PCOS. One of the possible reasons for not having regular periods could be low progesterone, but you would want your doctor to actually test and see if you have low progesterone before taking progesterone. And I would opt to take the natural form of progesterone. I can't remember the name of it right now, but I'll find it and link it in the description box if you're interested. But if you have low progesterone, there is a more natural version of it that you can take. Okay, so that's the treatments that are typically prescribed by doctors for PCOS. Let's talk about natural lifestyle interventions that can actually help to heal the root cause and not just be a band-aid and reverse a lot of your symptoms of PCOS. And so this is what I've been working on doing for myself the last 7 years, and I've been able to get to a really, really good place with my PCOS where I enjoy life, I feel healthy, I feel confident, I am not having to deal with all these big symptoms anymore. And obviously, it's been an up and down journey. There's lots of different seasons and different seasons that have more stress than others that may cause some of the symptoms to come back a little bit more or spike here and there. But overall, I would say this is the way I live my life now, and I love it. I love that PCOS has taught me about holistic health and how to be healthy now so that one day when I'm older, I hopefully won't have to be on all these different medications, and I would rather spend more money now on preventative healthcare than lots of money later having to deal with bad health issues on the other end of things. So if that's you and you're ready to reverse your PCOS symptoms and live a healthy lifestyle, here are all of my tips. So let's talk about nutrition first, because that is probably one of the most important pieces of this puzzle. With nutrition, the biggest thing we're trying to do is to keep our blood sugar balanced and over time heal our insulin resistance as well. So, to keep your blood sugar balanced, there's a couple different things that are really, really helpful with this. One of them is to use the build your plate method to eat really balanced meals. And the build your plate method is what I use with a lot of my clients. And it's where you have a fourth of your plate to be your high quality protein. A fourth of your plate is your carb, and then half your plate is your non-starchy veggies. And ideally, you would use that method for each one of your meals and snacks, really. Um, so it's high protein, lots of, different colored fruits and vegetables. And then the other thing is to eat a low glycemic index diet. And low glycemic index foods are going to keep your blood sugar more balanced because they are complex carbs that are going to be digested slowly. So they're not going to be taken into your bloodstream really quickly and spike your blood sugar. Easy swaps would be swapping white potatoes for sweet potatoes, white rice for brown rice. If you can eat gluten, swapping white bread for whole wheat bread that's high in fiber, or sourdough is really great. And then if you have fruit, trying to have the lower sugar fruits like berries, which are really great because they have antioxidants, which is good too. And that's the simple version of nutrition for PCOS, using the build your plate method, having enough protein at each meal. Oh, and also not having carbs by themselves. So if you have a craving for some chocolate and you want some dark chocolate, maybe pairing it with some almond butter, which is a healthy fat. Or if you have a snack of crackers, pairing that with some guac or some hummus, things like that. So just not having carbs or sugar by itself, pairing it with a healthy protein or a healthy fat is a really good rule. You call it the no naked carb rule, is an easy way to remember that. The other thing with nutrition is figuring out what your food sensitivities are. A lot of times with PCOS, your gut is having some issues and is not able to digest all of the foods that you're eating properly. You may have leaky gut that's causing some issues. And so you can either do gut testing with a functional medicine practitioner to figure out what's going on with your gut health and if you are sensitive to any certain foods. But you could also do an elimination diet on yourself. This is what I did when I was first diagnosed. I cut out all the common allergens for about a month at least. So gluten, dairy, processed foods, fried foods, sugar, alcohol, corn, soy, nuts, and eggs. And so I cut these out and then I would try them one at a time, like after a month of having absolutely none of it. And I found out that I was very sensitive to gluten and to dairy. And then I stayed away from processed foods, fried foods, refined carbs and sugar, things like that, and focused mainly on eating whole, nutrient-dense foods. So lots of good high quality protein, any and all meat really. Um, Low GI carbs like quinoa, brown rice, sweet potatoes, and then berries, green, red, and orange, all the different colored vegetables that you can eat. And fiber is really, really important. So be sure to eat your fiber. But yeah, I cut out gluten and dairy, and I find that for a lot of PCOS ladies, that really helps them um, reduce their inflammation and heal their leaky gut, heal their gut, and really helps with keeping their blood sugar balanced. So I would consider doing an elimination diet if you're having PCOS symptoms, inflammation, insulin resistance, and symptoms of leaky gut, IBS, any gut issues. So that is the basics of nutrition for PCOS. Let's move on to exercise. Now, this gets a little bit confusing because a lot of times with PCOS, people will say, oh, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. And at the end of the day, you just want to move your body intentionally every day. You just want to get some sort of intentional movement, whether that's going on a walk or to the gym or whatever that looks like for you. So you really have to find what you enjoy, number one, that you'll actually do. But I will say that with PCOS, we often have that high cortisol, that high stress from trauma or being in fight or flight mode all the time or whatever, adrenal fatigue, just go, go, go all the time. And exercise is a stressor on our body, and sometimes with PCOS, your body's just not yet in the right place to deal with that extra stress. So instead of doing really, really high intensity exercise like CrossFit and running and group classes and HIIT, try swapping that, especially if you've been doing that high intensity exercise and you're not getting great results. Try swapping that for lower intensity exercise. So, walking on an incline is the best for fat loss with PCOS. Walk on an incline for 30 to 45 minutes a day, and I promise you will feel and see results after being consistent with that. The other really important thing to do as far as exercise is build muscle. Muscle is going to burn more calories at rest. It's going to increase your metabolism, which we really need with PCOS. And yeah, you're just going to feel so much better. You're going to have more energy. You're going to feel strong. You're going to be able to eat more, and your body's going to be able to use that fuel properly. This is another reason why it's important to eat protein, and because protein is going to help you build muscle, and protein also uses more calories to digest than other types of food. So eat plenty of protein and build muscle. So obviously to build muscle, you need to follow a good strength training program that is programmed for you, and that uses progressive overload. So you want to do the same exercises week to week for about 6 weeks in order to really build muscle and be able to progressively overload that exercise that you're doing. So those are my top tips for PCOS exercise. Strength train, do at least 2 to 3 full body strength training sessions per week, and then walk every day, whether it's in the gym, outside, on a walking pad. Just get your heart rate up, walk. You want to be able to be in that kind of zone 2 cardio. So you want to push yourself kind of hard to where you're a little bit out of breath, a little bit sweaty, but you could still hold a conversation with someone next to you. You're not just walking your dog chilling, and not really working hard, but you're also not like running and out of breath and like panting. So walking every day and strength training. Okay, let's talk about a few other lifestyle ways to work on healing your PCOS. We've hit on the insulin resistance. We've hit on, reducing inflammation with your nutrition and exercise. Let's talk a little bit about sleep and stress management. I feel like sleep is so still just like not prioritized, especially in America today. We're always so go, 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 and it's almost a badge of honor to be busy all the time and to not have, slept enough hours. And we just need to get rid of that mindset, especially with PCOS. We already have sleep issues anyways sometimes. So optimizing your morning and your evening routine to really make sure that you get optimal sleep is so important. So setting a bedtime reminder in the evenings, putting your phone down at least 30 minutes before you want to be asleep, wearing blue light blocking glasses, watching the sunset, going on an evening stroll, trying to eat dinner at least 2 hours before you have to go to bed. All of these things and more could help you with sleep. At night, making sure the temperature is between like 60 and 67 degrees can really help. Keeping your room dark and quiet and using your bedroom only for sleeping, not for work and other things can help. In the morning, using a sunrise alarm clock would be great. Getting up and getting sunlight on your face in the morning, especially before 10 a.m., really helps with your circadian rhythm, helps your hormones tell your body that it's morning, it's time to wake up. Going on a morning stroll, and then just doing things you enjoy the morning, whether that's walking or journaling or having, your cup of tea or coffee, whatever that looks like for you, can all help you just optimize that morning and evening routine so that you're in a good routine with your sleep and going to bed and waking up at pretty similar times each day. You want to try and get at least 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And then in your luteal phase, you may even need an extra hour of sleep each night. If you aren't getting good sleep, even one night of bad sleep could cause you to not ovulate that cycle. So that's something to keep in mind and to motivate you maybe is even just one bad night of sleep could cause you to not ovulate. That's crazy, but that's how important sleep is. And when we sleep well, our body is able to regenerate, to renew, to repair, to store memory. The next day, we're going to make better decisions. We're going to make better decisions with food. We're going to have the energy to move our bodies more. So we're going to burn more calories. There's just so many benefits to good sleep. Now, stress management or increasing our ability to handle stress is absolutely key to managing our PCOS. You could have the best exercise routine and the best nutrition, but if you're not sleeping well and you are stressed, you're still going to have so many issues and so many symptoms. So, slowing down, learning how to set healthy boundaries and say no to things, getting rid of things that are draining you in your life. If you have unresolved trauma or childhood wounds that have not been processed properly as an adult and stored as proper memories in your body, that's going to be stored physically and it's going to manifest as disease. So, getting a good therapist or life coach and dealing with this trauma, these wounds, these beliefs that aren't serving you anymore, that kept you safe at one point in your life, but just aren't necessary anymore. Doing the work, basically, doing that hard, deep inner work that is going to help you really get to a good place mentally and emotionally. That stuff is so important for healing yourself physically as well, because again, everything is connected. So do that work, and that's really going to help you out. Trust me. There's other things you can do too in the moment to get yourself out of fight or flight mode and into the rest and digest mode. And the best is breath work. Just in the moment when you start to feel stressed and you're not able to turn that stress off, which that's the most important thing. You're going to get stressed. There's going to be stressful things that come up in life. But the key is to be able to help your body get out of the stress. Because if you think back thousands of years, our fight or flight mode was given to us to keep us safe. If you're about to be chased by a bear or lion or tiger or whatever, our body goes into that fight or flight mode. It shuts down digestion. It pumps all of this cortisol into our bloodstream so that we can run for our life and survive. And then we've physically used up the cortisol and we can get out of fight or flight mode. But now stressful things happen at work. We get, an email from our boss or a negative phone call or a family member stresses us out, but we're just sitting there and the cortisol gets pumped in our bloodstream and then it stays there. And then there's no way for us to physically get it out. So that's why exercise can be a really beneficial thing for mental health and help us to de-stress when it comes to getting out of fight or flight. But just doing some breath work, doing 4-7-8 breathing, where you inhale in your nose for 4 seconds, hold it for 7 seconds, and then exhale out your mouth for 8 seconds. Or doing alternate nostril breathing, or 2 inhales in the nose and a long exhale out the mouth. Things like that can really help us tell our brain that we're safe, that we're okay, that we can get out of fight or flight mode. We're not in danger anymore. There's also like EFT tapping. You can journal. You can do, yoga or Pilates or a fun hobby. But just learning how to be in tune with your body, get out of fight or flight mode and into rest or digest mode, and increase your ability to handle stress. Each time you do an exercise like this, you increase your ability to handle stress. And so managing stress is just, I can't stress enough how important it is in order to heal your PCOS. It's so sad when I work with clients and they're exercising their butt off and they're working so hard to eat so well and they're still a little inflamed and a little, having trouble losing weight. And it really comes down to, are you taking care of your stress levels, or are you just on the go, saying yes to everything, letting other people, stress you out all the time, not prioritizing your sleep, and yeah, just not managing your stress levels. So really that's if your cortisol is off, it's going to affect the rest of your hormones. So this is like the most important hormone to get in check, I think, is your stress levels. And then the other things will fall in place after that. Okay, just a couple more quick things. Supplements and toxins are what we're gonna touch on. I'm not gonna go too deep into these things. Again, I'm sure we'll have future episodes going more in depth on all of these topics. But as far as supplements go, especially if you've been on birth control depletes us of lots of vitamins and minerals. If you have gut issues or leaky gut dysbiosis, you're probably not able to absorb all the nutrients and minerals that you really need to be getting from your food. And it is shown that women with PCOS are nutrient deficient. We're not really able to digest and absorb all of the nutrients, vitamins, minerals that we need to be getting from our food. So supplements can be super, super, super helpful. Just be careful to get third-party tested, high quality, bioavailable supplements that your body can actually absorb and that aren't just going to sit in your stomach for a long time. So you want to get capsules that are bioavailable and digestible, right? A lot of my go-to supplements for years with PCOS that were just kind of baseline helpful were vitamin D, omega-3, probiotics, a multivitamin. I tried ashwagandha for a little while for stress. Magnesium and zinc are really good minerals that are often super helpful for women with PCOS. Berberine I really have liked lately for helping with insulin resistance and weight loss. Berberine it has been shown to be just as effective, if not more effective than metformin. And it can have some side effects, but I like it a lot better than metformin for myself. So anyways, there's so many different supplements that could be helpful that you could take. The best thing obviously would be to do testing with a functional medicine practitioner that looks at optimal ranges and can tell you what you're deficient in and what you should be taking. And then if you are having gut issues, obviously fixing that first and then taking the supplements to supplement that. Okay, and then really quickly, lastly, we're going to talk about toxins because that is kind of the final step that I took the last couple years in really helping my inflammation and my hormones be balanced. So over time, I just used the EWG app. You can also go to ewg.org, but you can look up any product, any cleaning product, beauty product, skin, hair, laundry detergent, whatever you think of, and you can find a non-toxic replacement for that product. So as you run out of shampoo, toothpaste, deodorant, conditioner, hair care, skincare, cleaning supplies, just use EWG to find a non-toxic replacement. And it may take, a year or so to really cycle through and find which non-toxic products you like the best. But you can also read reviews. There's so many different good options out there now, which is amazing. And you can, if you're on a budget, you can even DIY make a lot of your own things just with using pure Castile soap. So I make a lot of our stuff. I make our laundry detergent, our hand soap, my cleaning supplies. I make it all with Castile soap and baking soda and vinegar and sometimes rubbing alcohol. But yeah, you can just look up different DIY non-toxic recipes for all that stuff, and it is super easy and very affordable. And really the biggest reason to go non-toxic is to decrease the toxic load on our bodies so that things like our liver can process correctly, can metabolize estrogen well. Our liver does so many good things for us. And so just being kind to it, as well as not exposing ourselves to all these endocrine disruptors and, fake hormones and things that are just going to wreak havoc on our reproductive system and our digestive system just helps so much overall with PCOS. So those are a lot, a lot of big lifestyle changes to make with managing PCOS naturally. But guys, it's taken me 7 years to make all these changes. Like, don't feel like you have to do it all at once. Do one thing at a time, make it a habit, and then add one more new healthy habit. This is a marathon, it's not a sprint, and you're creating a sustainable, healthy lifestyle. Like, you want to be doing this for the rest of your life to be healthy and to manage your PCOS symptoms well. So if you're at a loss with where to start, maybe just start with managing your stress. Start with doing some breath work in the morning and then slowly build, your optimal morning routine. And then maybe add in like walking every day for exercise. Maybe one week you just make one small change with your nutrition. You're going to swap out your high glycemic index carbs for low glycemic index carbs. And then the next week, maybe switching out sugary drinks for water and, healthier beverages. You just have this mindset of, I'm going to make one small change at a time, make it a habit, and continue to build on that. If you need more help, encourage, support, I absolutely love coaching women with PCOS and different chronic health issues similar. So, of course, anytime feel free to reach out to me and ask questions, ask for advice. I'd love to be your coach and help walk you through how to make these changes and make them sustainably so that they'll last. But on that note, I'll end there. I hope this has been helpful and informational. So let me know if you've enjoyed this episode and what you would like to hear about next. Love you guys. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Space for Grace podcast. Be sure to check out the description for any links or resources that were mentioned during this episode. And if you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe, share with a friend, and leave a review. I hope you're leaving today educated, inspired, and ready to flourish. This is Space for Grace.